All right, let's get straight into what's happening on the price of Bitcoin. So the last video, we were looking at the long trend that I was in, and that video was over here. I've since closed that trade out fully, and we're going to get into exactly what I'm expecting next, because over in that video that was outlining a few very, very key levels and the expectations going forward. And since then, we have had a very large flush up. At that point in time, it was around 66,200. Now we're at 68,800, coming in at a very, very key point of resistance, which is this point of control of this entire range. Okay, so we're going to get into, are we going to break it? Are we going to break beneath it? What's going to happen with it? Because it is a very, very key pivotal level. All right, so first of all, let's cover the more macro outlook into what is happening, just so we can get the frame and picture of what's going on. So monthly, we have a monthly right beneath the $58,000. We've got a weekly, which we hit into and we closed just above it, which you can see here, it's $62,000, and price is holding above as of right now. We also have a few daily levels. Now let's zoom in to see what that looks like. That coincides very nicely with the level that I was actually looking at yesterday, which formed as our daily. We've also got a daily at $70,000, which is, that actually might coincide very nicely with, yeah, not too much, not pretty close actually. So that coincides near the value area high, not too far away. And I think it might coincide closely with this. So we've got here the daily, okay. So we also have the Fibonacci level coming in just over here, which is this little block of resistance, which we can see we're trading and consolidating beneath. Now, from the data, consolidation beneath resistance is usually very, very bullish. And I want to talk about what the order flow is suggesting, because in this range, we have slight bullish order flow in the sense that we have a long, actually a sizable short here. We have a few different shorts coming in here. You got a different short, you got a short. It's not exactly fully neutral. There's a slight bullish tendency to this order flow, which would mean to me that we should break it. Now, one little hint I would like to add is we have a fair value gap right here. So in terms of how we do it, we might end up having a little push down in here, then breaking above. But my expectation would be that we're going to rotate to the upside of this band. And then from there, we can see how that range plays out. Now, other levels that I'm specifically keeping my eye on are the downside levels. And I want to highlight this because I have been very, very bullish, and I've been speaking about the asymmetry in terms of where the large liquidation levels are appearing. Now, that chart is specifically over here. So if we look at that, we can see a large chunk of the liquidity is to the upside rather than the downside. That being said, we also have some key levels down here. That's why in the last video, I was looking at this place as a zone. Now that zone extends all the way down to around $55,000. So the variance in here is very large. It could drop another 20%, okay, from where we are now. And obviously that gives us a very, very good trade if we drop down there too. But to me, it's an accumulation zone here. So if we do end up forming some sort of consolidative range, I'm going to be buying up this whole entire spot. And I would expect if we do market structure and breaks down, I would expect us to take out this low, fall into around the $56,000 level, and then take a really heavy swing trade there. That's why with perpetual trades, I'm being very cautionary with how I take them. So it has to be very, very key pivots. So with the one yesterday, with the $300 or whatever it was profit, that was on the basis of hitting a very, very key point, which is down here. It was also in the swing failure of this low and then push it back up. And then you also had a market structure shift, which we can see clearly right over here. Okay. So market structure shift, you're coming into support, you break above that. In here, that's when I took the long. Actually, I took it back over here, this one right here. And then from there, powered forward. Now, we know that there's a high likelihood that we're probably going to break above. However, there is a large level of support here, which it could dip into before we do that. Now, that would be what I'm looking for a long if I'm going to take a scalp long. So just to get a detail as to where that would look like, it would look something like this. So we know that on the 4 hour, we can see that there's a large level here coming in. So what does that look like? So let's say price does a action that looks something similar to this. We range, maybe take out the high a bit, whatever, ranges for a bit, drops down in here. This would probably shift up a bit. And in this region, I'll be looking for a trade. I'll also be using momentum waves to give a decision on that, and then the order flow. So it looks something like this to me. And then within that, you'd probably hit the hammer and book it in there. Now it's the order flow. That would paint a different picture when that would happen. But for now, we just mark out levels of what that would look like, okay? So specifically On the local timeframes, I'm looking at around 67 to 60, or yeah, $67,000 is the region I'm looking at for a nice scalp trade. Now, depending on how it looks when we get there, then I'll determine if I take it. Regarding the resistances, let's have a look at what we've got. So definitely higher. We'll get into that in a second on the more macro, but just locally looking at what we're seeing, what you can immediately point out would be right now already flushing out a bit of this liquidity, as you can see here. And then you'd have the high coming in as a liquidation point. So that's definitely one level. But I would say the strongest one would be the value area high of this range. So to point that out, it would be like this, which are coming in above these highs here. So something in this block. So this would be a take profit / short zone, which I'd be pretty keen on taking a look at when we get there. So to preface, we've got here, and then that's going to be green. So really that's what I'm looking at in terms of the local price action. So you can highlight that in the chart. As for the macro, we know that there's ideal support down here. Like ideally, I would actually like to see it hit there because that's a very, very key level. There's liquidity, there's volume nodes. It would be great. We take out the low, and then that would be a very, very good sentiment flush for another push up. Because this is looking a little bit weak when you think about it. I think to me, the definitive answer would be if we break above this value high, because if not, then a rotation back down would make the most sense to me. And then at that point, we are in this consolidative sideways range. And then I would expect, to be honest, to flush out these lows just on a sentiment basis. But I'll update that as we get there. So that's why it's very important to head over here, hit the subscribe button, hit the like buttons, and then sign up to the exchanges below so you can follow along with these trades so you can start getting profits. And you can see here, the trade with me's, you got Bybit weeks, specifically the ones I'm using. And if you want to use alternatives, go for it. They're on the links below. And also the Telegram channel, which you can look at the in real time information there. Okay, that'll be awesome. I'm also noticing that the subscribers are climbing, which is great. And the consistent viewership base is climbing, which is a really good incentive for me to make better content, more consistent content, and really push it out for you guys. Okay, so back onto the chart. We've got our nice level of support down here, which is around $56,000 on the more macro. Now, the macro resistances, let's have a look because it's going to be very, very key. Without a doubt, our biggest one's coming in at $87,000, which we can see clearly because of the fact that there's a large volume level. As for the volume weighted levels, which is this white line here, it's probably going to drop a little bit lower. Let's say we do push up, it's probably going to be down here by the time we get there, which by that point, it won't be a large confluence. But what we can sort of forecast by seeing things, let's have a look. Okay, so let's say we drop that low. We're going to have a resistance level coming in here, which is actually going to be very solid because we've got the low here, we've got the value area low, the range, we've got the 618, which is the Fibonacci zone. So that's one. That's going to be coinciding very nicely. I'll take this out, it's not very relevant. So for me, I would say right now, I'm literally looking at this. So macro support would be here. Macro resistance is 81 and then 87, 88 for now. And I'm going to be macro, I mean like midterm macro because there's higher level targets, obviously. And then there's also lower targets, but just to give the immediate month to week ahead for our trades. And then obviously on the more micro landscape, we can see for me, I'm looking at here and here specifically. So I'm actually pretty keen on taking along in this region, but I want to see certain things take place. I would like to see the order flow. I'd like to see a lot of shorts enter coming into that low. And then I'm going to time that in with the zones here. So I'm probably not going to take it just on the cuff. I'd probably like to see a little green dot form. And then I'd probably take it on the backdrop of this flickering that we have shorts entering in the market. Or we do have some longs coming in to push price up to even create a sort of short squeeze event and if that happens. So you're basically getting the cocktail of fuel to push it up. But in terms of the zones, I'm looking at this and this, okay? So this is the short update I'm doing today. I hope that's very, very clear, and I'll update you in the next trade I take. For now, keep being consistent in the markets and stay tuned for the next uploads I do. Again, subscribe to the channel, guys. Watch all the videos. I recommend you watch these ones and also these ones down here, which is the macro content, which goes over what's happening month to month basis. And that's very, very important for the more, if you're holding spot, okay? All right, that should be it, guys. For now, catch you guys later, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.